Emotional manipulation breaks your heart, but psychological manipulation breaks your reality. And by the time you notice it, you're no longer sure which thoughts are yours. This video is about how to shield your mind, not just your emotions. Psychological manipulation doesn't always scream. Often it whispers, subtly rewriting how you think, what you believe, and even how you see yourself. It doesn't just distort your feelings, it distorts your entire perception of reality until you question your memory, your instincts, and eventually, your sanity. You start accommodating, apologizing, explaining yourself for things that don't need justification, and before long, you're doubting the most sacred voice you have, your own. This video is not just about recognizing these patterns, it's about rebuilding your mental firewall, learning to spot covert manipulation tactics, and reclaiming the sovereignty of your thoughts. Whether you're still entangled with someone who plays mind games, or you've left but the programming lingers, this is your space. We'll break down the most common psychological manipulation strategies, how they get into your head, and most importantly, how to get them out. Let's begin the process of reclaiming your mind. Psychological manipulation is not about conflict, it's about control without your awareness. Unlike open aggression, this form of manipulation cloaks itself in subtlety. It's not meant to provoke resistance. It's meant to reprogram how you think, feel, and respond, often in ways that benefit someone else, at the cost of your clarity and peace. It often starts small. A comment that makes you second-guess yourself. A moment where you feel the need to justify something instinctive. These aren't accidents. They're calculated pressure points. The manipulator's goal is to make you question your own reality, so they don't have to confront theirs. One of the most dangerous aspects is that psychological manipulation is not always conscious. Some manipulators know exactly what they're doing, weaponizing guilt, silence, charm, or shame. But others may be acting from their own unresolved dysfunction, repeating behaviors they've learned to survive. Either way, the outcome is the same. You lose track of yourself. You begin internalizing blame, filtering your decisions through fear or approval, and walking on mental eggshells. What makes this kind of manipulation so devastating is that it doesn't just hurt, it reshapes. Over time, it can lead to anxiety, depression, people-pleasing, perfectionism, emotional numbness, or a loss of core identity. In this video, we'll unpack exactly how this happens and how to reverse the damage, because awareness is the first defense, and the mind, once reclaimed, becomes the last frontier they can't touch. Psychological manipulation doesn't always leave bruises. It leaves confusion, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. You may not even realize it's happening until long after the damage is done. But if you've felt consistently off balance in certain relationships, there are often unmistakable signs that manipulation has been at play. 1. You constantly second-guess yourself. You replay conversations in your head, wondering if you were overreacting or misinterpreting. You apologize often, even when you're not sure what you did wrong. 2. You feel responsible for someone else's emotions. When they're angry, you feel guilty. When they're silent, you feel anxious. You've learned to manage their moods, sometimes at the cost of your own. 3. You suppress your needs to keep the peace. You avoid bringing up issues or asking for things you need, because it's easier than dealing with the backlash or silent treatment. 4. You've lost trust in your perception. You've been told you're too sensitive, paranoid, or crazy. Over time, you begin to believe it. 5. You feel drained, not empowered after interacting with them. Healthy relationships might challenge you, but they shouldn't leave you feeling smaller, confused, or broken. 6. You're isolated, emotionally or socially. Manipulators often undermine your support systems, either subtly or overtly, so your world shrinks until they're the central figure. Recognizing these signs isn't about blaming yourself. It's about naming what happened so it no longer controls you. These patterns thrive in secrecy and confusion. Once you spot them, the illusion starts to break. And when that happens, you can begin to return to yourself, one truth at a time. Psychological manipulation doesn't just rely on the manipulator's tactics. It also exploits the mental traps we fall into, often without realizing. These inner distortions make us easier to control because they quietly convince us to doubt ourselves, suppress discomfort, and rationalize mistreatment. 1. The need to be good. If you were raised to always be agreeable, kind, or self-sacrificing, you may have internalized the belief that standing up for yourself is selfish. Manipulators love this because you'll prioritize their comfort over your boundaries. 2. Overdeveloped empathy. Empathy is a gift, but when unchecked, it becomes a weakness in the wrong hands. If you constantly excuse harmful behavior because they've been through so much, you're giving them permission to hurt you. 3. The illusion of control. You might believe that if you just say the right thing or try harder, you can fix the situation. This keeps you trapped, always working to solve something that was never yours to fix. 4. Fear of conflict. Avoiding discomfort often means avoiding truth. Manipulators rely on your silence. They count on your desire to keep things calm so they can continue unchecked. 5. Self-doubt and gaslighting. When you've been told you're too sensitive or overreacting enough times, you start to believe it. The trap here isn't just external, it's internalized confusion. You become your own silencer. These mental traps are not flaws, they're survival strategies, often developed in childhood, but they no longer serve you. Seeing them clearly is the first step in disarming them. Because once you stop turning against yourself, manipulators lose their grip, and clarity begins to replace confusion. When you've been psychologically manipulated, your inner voice is no longer entirely yours. It's been rewritten, gradually, subtly, by someone who benefits from your confusion, self-doubt, and silence. Reclaiming your inner narrative means unlearning the lies you were taught to believe about yourself. It means noticing which thoughts echo the manipulator's voice and choosing not to accept them as truth. Start by paying attention to your internal dialogue. When you mess up, do you immediately criticize yourself? When you feel hurt, do you invalidate your own feelings? These are signs that your self-concept has been infiltrated. You didn't choose those thoughts, they were planted. Now is the time to question them. Ask, whose voice is this really? Does this belief serve my healing or someone else's control? What would I say to a loved one in my position? Next, begin to rewrite. Speak back to the toxic scripts with clarity. I am allowed to have needs. My worth isn't tied to how much I tolerate. It's not my job to absorb someone else's pain. This is not about positive thinking. It's about reclaiming authorship of your own reality. Journaling can help, so can saying your truth aloud, even if only to yourself. Every time you recognize manipulation for what it was and name it, you reinforce your autonomy. The ultimate act of resistance isn't just walking away from manipulation. It's restoring trust in your own perception and learning to believe yourself again. You are not broken. You are remembering who you were before they rewrote you. Emotional boundaries protect your heart, but mental boundaries protect your reality. When someone manipulates you psychologically, they don't just cross your feelings. They invade your thoughts, your decisions, and your sense of self. Mental boundaries begin with recognizing where you end and someone else begins, especially in your thinking. Ask yourself, are these my thoughts or someone else's voice living rent-free in my mind? When someone is trying to control your perception, you might feel compelled to explain your choices, justify your feelings, or seek approval for every decision. This is a sign your mental boundaries have been breached. Here's how to start reinforcing them. Trust your inner no. You don't owe emotional access to people who manipulate or confuse you. If a thought, request, or comment feels wrong, honor that feeling. Don't debate your truth with those who twist it. Mental boundaries mean not offering your clarity up for someone else's distortion. Interrupt the loop. When you catch yourself obsessing over what someone might think or say, pause. That loop is how control continues, even when they're not present. Limit exposure to gaslighting sources. This includes toxic relationships, media, or environments that constantly question your judgment or identity. Use inner affirmations as shields. Quiet reminders like, "This is mine, that is theirs. I decide what I believe." Mental boundaries are invisible, but their impact is powerful. The stronger they are, the less space manipulation has to enter. You may still hear the old voices for a while, but with boundaries in place, they lose their power to shape who you are. Protect your thoughts. They're the blueprint of your reality. Psychological manipulation often leaves you in a fog, unsure of your own opinions, intuition, or ability to make decisions. Cognitive autonomy is the process of reclaiming your mental independence. It's about thinking for yourself again, without someone else's influence dominating your inner world. After manipulation, it's common to hesitate before speaking your mind or trusting your instincts. You may find yourself asking others for permission or second-guessing your every move. This isn't a personal flaw. It's a symptom of having been trained to distrust your inner voice. To rebuild autonomy, start small. Make low-stakes decisions without input. What do you want to eat, wear, or do today? These tiny choices strengthen your confidence in your own judgment. Reconnect with your beliefs. What values truly matter to you, not the ones you were told to adopt to be accepted or safe. Practice disagreeing safely. Even if it's in journaling, give yourself permission to hold a thought that others may not like. This flexes your inner freedom. Challenge mental scripts. When a thought comes up like, "They'll hate me if I say this," or "I always mess things up," pause and ask, "Is this true, or is this programming?" Use your voice again. Speak your opinions, express your preferences, and take up mental space, even when it feels uncomfortable. Cognitive autonomy isn't just thinking differently, it's the return of mental ownership, the ability to navigate the world with your own compass. You don't need approval to be valid. You don't need consensus to be clear. The power to decide what you believe, value, and follow has always been yours, and now you're taking it back. Healing from psychological manipulation isn't a one-time insight. It's a daily act of mental self-protection. To stay grounded in your truth, you'll need to develop practices that shield your mind long-term. especially in a world where manipulation often hides in plain sight. Here are a few powerful ways to maintain your inner clarity. Practice conscious self-reflection. Make space regularly to check in with yourself. Ask, are my thoughts aligned with my values? Do I feel centered or scrambled? Awareness is armor. Limit exposure to manipulative environments. This includes not just toxic relationships but also media, online spaces, and cultural narratives that gaslight your experience or push unhealthy norms. Surround yourself with clarity-minded people. Build connections with those who encourage truth, not control. Genuine conversations help recalibrate your inner compass. Strengthen your internal authority. This means making decisions without outsourcing your judgment. You can still receive input, but you choose what aligns with your truth. Guard your mental bandwidth. Manipulation thrives in overwhelm. Simplify where possible. Rest. Protect your attention like it's gold, because it is. Over time, these practices create a kind of psychological immunity, not to pain, but to confusion. You may still encounter manipulation, but it won't stick the way it used to. You'll recognize it, name it, and move through it without losing yourself. That's what long-term shielding looks like, not living in fear, but living in full awareness. Understanding psychological manipulation in theory is powerful, but seeing how it plays out in real life makes the truth unshakable. Take Maya, for example. For years, she thought she was just bad at relationships. She was constantly apologizing, trying harder, and explaining herself to her partner, who never seemed satisfied. After watching a video on gaslighting, something clicked. She realized she wasn't unstable. She was being systematically confused. That clarity became her turning point. Or James, who always felt the need to prove his worth at work, even when he was burning out. His boss praised him publicly, but isolated him behind the scenes, using guilt and subtle threats to keep him compliant. Once James recognized the manipulation, he began documenting conversations, reclaiming boundaries, and eventually left for a healthier environment. Then there's you, watching this. Maybe you've already lived through it. Maybe you're still untangling yourself. These stories are not rare, and they're not weaknesses. They're evidence that your instincts were right all along. Every time you identify manipulation and choose clarity instead of confusion, you're writing your own story, one where your mind belongs to you again. Psychological manipulation is a slow erosion, not just of boundaries but of identity. And yet, if you're here, listening, questioning, reclaiming, that means something inside you never fully surrendered. That spark of awareness, that's where your freedom begins. Rebuilding your mind after manipulation is not about becoming invulnerable. It's about becoming conscious. Conscious of your worth, conscious of your truth, conscious of who you are without someone else's voice shaping your thoughts. You may not have chosen the manipulation, but you get to choose what happens next. So take the time to unlearn, to rebuild, to recenter. Your thoughts are yours again. Your reality is yours again. And your story isn't over. It's finally becoming your own. If this resonated with you, share it, comment below, and keep choosing clarity, even when it's hard. Because every step you take back to yourself is a step no one else can undo.